Welcome to the latest episode of Who's in Charge in America? On Monday, the federal government's mask mandate on airplanes and mass transit abruptly came to an end, even though we're seeing rising COVID cases across the country. And plenty of people, from pilots to passengers, were, in my view, ridiculously and recklessly celebrating that.
You're no longer required on Delta Airlines to wear the mask, so feel free to exercise your freedom this morning.
Finally! Yeah, finally! I can get infected on a plane. Yay! It's a major change to our COVID response policy that affects millions across the country. Not made by our president, or by Congress, or by the CDC, or Dr. Fauci. No. A 35-year-old Donald Trump-appointed judge in Florida got to call the shots on the safety of a nation. Kathryn Kimball Mizelle was nominated by Trump in 2020 when she was only 33 and just 8 years out of law school. She issued a ruling on Monday that found the CDC's mask mandate extension until May the 3rd exceeded the authority of the agency. Put aside the debate over whether a Tampa-based judge should have the authority to strike down federal public health policy and focus for a moment on Mizelle, who was rated as not qualified by the American Bar Association. And as they pointed out in their 2020 report, since her admission to the bar, Ms. Mizelle has not tried a case, civil or criminal, as lead or co-counsel. But she did have the connections. She's married to a former Trump official, DHS General Counsel Chad Mizelle, who also happens to be a close friend and ally of Stephen Miller. Imagine that. She also clerked for conservative Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Surprise! For 2 years now, conservatives have been screaming about unelected bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci making public health decisions. Yet where's the fuss when an unelected, barely qualified Florida judge is making those same health decisions? For the country. That's because, folks, here in America, health policy isn't a matter of health, it's a matter of politics. It explains why Judge Mizelle went out of her way to cite a host of right-wing judges in her opinion, something legal experts said was unnecessary. And sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings, the 35-year-old Judge Mizelle, thanks to her lifetime appointment by Trump, will be making equally bad decisions that affect all of America for decades. Scary, right? Remember, this is what Trump himself said on the campaign trail in 2016.
Here is some of what we can accomplish together. Appoint judges, so important. That's one of the most important reasons why we have to win the presidency. If we don't, it's going to be a whole different country.
With the trusted help of Mitch McConnell and the lobbying of powerful conservative groups, he was able to successfully shape America for generations to come, appointing 234 life-tenured judges across the country, 3 to the Supreme Court and 54 to the powerful Circuit Court of Appeals, the vast majority of whom are white male. Trump also nominated 9 other unqualified judges aside from Mizelle. That's more than Barack Obama and George W. Bush combined. It's difficult to overstate just how bad some of Trump's nominees to the bench were. Take Matthew Patterson, who actually was considered qualified by the ABA. Qualified on paper, sure, but well, here's his 2017 confirmation hearing.
Yes. Can you tell me what the Dober standard is?
Senator Kennedy, I don't have that readily at my disposal, but I would be happy to take a closer look at that.
Do you know what a motion in limine is?
I would probably not be able to give you a good definition right here at the table.
Do you know what the Younger abstention doctrine is?
I've heard of it, but again.
That was Matthew Peterson, not Patterson, making his law school professors proud there. Thankfully, he wasn't confirmed. He bowed out after that very embarrassing exchange went viral. America was saved from Peterson, just not from Mizelle. Joining me now to discuss this is legal analyst and Supreme Court reporter Mike Sachs. He's currently a visiting scholar at Duke University's DeWitt Wallace Center for Media and Democracy. Mike, thanks for coming on the show. Mask mandates in mass transit are lifted because a Trump judge says it's not in the CDC's authority to make that public health call. Can we agree this is a very controversial ruling from a controversial judge?
It is, but welcome to our juristocracy. This is how our country is now, and frankly, how it's largely been since its very inception. James Madison in 1800 put a crony on the bench at 32 years old in the Supreme Court. That person turned sides, ended up becoming a zombie chomping through the Democratic, Republican, Jeffersonian, Jacksonian model to pursue the dead Federalist Party's agenda throughout the mid-1800s. This has gone on since American history began. And right now we're having Republican judges on the court to chomp through Democratic agenda, political policy agenda, because according to those in that particular conservative legal movement, Democrats are unconstitutional and cannot be trusted to govern. Judges, even 35-year-old judges who clerked for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, are the ones who are trusted to make sure that Democrats cannot get their elected policy positions forward.
So to be fair to her, Mizelle didn't do anything illegal. It's our system that's at fault, right? That allows a president to appoint an unqualified judge to a lifetime position who then can overturn federal safety measures for what are clearly political purposes. We should all be questioning how this is allowed to happen, right? Talking about reforming the system? No?
Yeah, I mean, and unless until we address the structural issues with our unrepresentative democracy, then Democrats and their liberal allies kind of, in my mind, need to quit whining and, while they can, fill the courts with every last young left liberal ideologue they can find. Play the same game that the Republicans have played under President Trump, under President Bush, under President Reagan. Democrats haven't done a very good job of that. And every 4 years, you have people on the left, on the liberal side of the ledger, saying Democrats run on the Supreme Court. Get the message out that the Supreme Court is where policy gets made in this country so long as Congress and the executive branch are broken and deadlocked. Unfortunately, we have an electoral college, we have a Senate, we have extreme partisan gerrymandering, all of which favor an unrepresentative democracy. And until we have a Supreme Court that does something to fix those things, so of course you can't fix a Senate or electoral college, that needs a constitutional amendment, but until we have a Supreme Court that's ready to support and buttress America's multiracial and representative democracy, then we will have this juristocracy making decisions for us.
So you talk about juristocracy. What we're seeing in America right now is because Congress refuses to pass any meaningful legislation, judges are pretty much the only functional policymakers right now. And yet Republicans are the ones who always complain about activist judges. The irony here is pretty glaring.
Well, yes, and that's a canard, okay? Back in the 1930s, the activists were the conservative, and until the 1930s, the activists were conservative judges striking down anything that violated their idea of the economic plutocracy that we had in this country. Then Franklin Roosevelt came to office, and he put in the New Deal, which then got struck down, the first wave of it, as violating that view of the conservative juristocracy's sense of how this country should be. But Franklin Roosevelt then, through attrition and otherwise, got to fill the court pretty much and effected a constitutional revolution that we still have sitting with us today, that, again, the current conservative legal movement is looking to take down. But that was about restraint. Yes. They deferred to the elected branches at that point because they had the court that was finally able to do so. Then you had in the 1960s, and frankly, it started in Brown v. Board in 1954, but through the 1960s, you had a liberal Supreme Court that was divided over whether to restrain themselves and respect the frankly broken democratic system in the South, but still the democracy that existed there, or the activist liberals who decided to really beef up protections for minorities, for women, for religious dissenters, etc. And that was a system we've been thinking back since. And the conservative legal movement now it's finally effected the counter-revolution to both of those liberal revolutions over the past 90 years.
Quick last question before we run out of time. In some better news, Joe Biden in his first year in office has appointed more judges to the federal bench in a single year than any president since Reagan. 24% have been black women. 70% of his circuit court nominees have been people of color, the majority women. He's appointed a public defender to the Supreme Court for the first time. So he's trying to change things, trying to change Trump's legacy, but it's an uphill struggle, is it not?
Oh, yeah, it is. Because just the numbers are against him. You have to refill seats that haven't already been filled. And when you get to the red states, you at least for the courts of appeals and for the district courts, you face massive Republican resistance from those where the senators are Republican. But I want to leave your viewers with one notion here. Law in this country has been politics. Our bedrock law, the Constitution, was liberty and equality pit against each other in constant tension. That's what we still have today. And until voters and viewers of the show understand that we need to understand the names of the people on the bench making these decisions and know them as much as, say, Joe Manchin or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Chuck Schumer, then we can't get anywhere in this country either.
That's why we wanted to talk about Judge Mizelle today. Mike Sachs, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.